there, it's Gary Parrish. Welcome back to the CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball Podcast, where we sometimes discuss camel fighting, dodo birds, leaky black. Eye on College Basketball Podcast is presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. Matt Norlander is on a much-deserved weekend getaway. It's David Cobb's here with me. If you're watching on YouTube, smash the like button like you're Brandon Davies. You have consent. And don't forget while you're here to also subscribe to the CBS Sports College Basketball YouTube channel. Let's get into it. The most interesting game on Thursday night's schedule was probably Colorado at Arizona. Then it tipped off, quickly became uninteresting. Final score, Arizona 97, Colorado 50. That performance pushed Arizona up to number 3 at KenPom. Wildcats are at least 21 spots higher than every other Pac-12 school. So, David Cobb, here's my first question for you. Do you agree that Arizona is going to win the Pac-12? And if so, do you also agree that Arizona will win its league by more games than any other power conference champion wins its league?
Hey, Gary, how are you doing?
Wonderful. How are you?
Good. Yeah, I do believe Arizona wins their conference by more than any other power conference champion, simply because there is zero resistance. Like, I understand Purdue could end up in that conversation because they could run away with the Big Ten, but who is even going to be competitive against Arizona outside of an anomaly where Stanford hit 16 out of 25 three-pointers, which is what happened in Arizona's loss the other day. I don't think that's going to happen again in Pac-12 play. So I see Arizona winning the Pac-12 by at least 3 games. And yeah, Purdue could theoretically do that in the Big Ten as well, but that's less likely due to the fact that there is at least some legitimate competition in that league.
Yeah, I don't think there's a team in the Pac-12 that, if Arizona plays well, can beat Arizona. Like you said, Stanford got them, but that was a total outlier performance. I really do think they're just going to run away with this thing. Arizona, the updated numbers, 11-3 overall, just 3-3 in the past 6. But the losses are to Purdue, FAU, and at Stanford when Stanford shot the ball incredibly well. They do have 4 quadrant 1 wins. A win at Duke, Michigan State on a neutral, beat Wisconsin, and then beat Alabama on a neutral. So for what it's worth, KenPom right now has Arizona winning the Pac-12, like you said, by 3 games. If you go through the other power conferences, KenPom right now has Houston winning the Big 12 by 2 games, Purdue winning the Big 10 by 1 game, and then they got co-champs in the SEC, Alabama, Tennessee, Auburn, co-champs in the Big East, UConn, Marquette, co-champs in the ACC, Duke, UNC. Would you move off of any of those? Kentucky would be an obvious candidate in the SEC to compete with Alabama, Tennessee, Auburn for a championship in that league. You see anything else you'd take issue with there?
So you're telling me KenPom has Houston and not Kansas winning the Big 12?
By multiple games.
Yeah, I don't buy that. I think Kansas wins the Big 12 over Houston. It's Houston's first. Houston is a classic computer tricker at the moment, Gary, because have you seen like how light their schedule is? I'll pull it up and let you know exactly where KenPom ranks Houston's non-conference schedule, but it's been super light, and I understand why, because Kelvin Sampson is saying, hey, we're transitioning from the AAC to the Big 12, which is the toughest conference in college basketball. So let's take it a little bit easy on ourselves before we get into that meat grinder. But I think that has allowed them to trick the computers. Okay, so get this. Houston right now is allowing fewer points per game than any team in the country. They're allowing 49.4 points per game. The next closest team in college basketball is allowing 55 points per game. So they're like 5 or 6 points ahead of the second best defense in college basketball. And that's largely due to the level of competition that they played. So I'm a firm believer that Houston is going to lose a handful of games in the Big 12 because of how difficult it is and because of how unaccustomed that program is to a night in, night out, drag out fight like they're going to face.
Every once in a while, somebody will ask me, why do you have Houston ranked so high? They haven't beat anybody. Well, that's not technically true. I mean, they beat Texas A&M. That's a nice win. But they certainly haven't challenged themselves in the non-league portion of the schedule, which I understand. And it's for exactly the reason you laid out. Like when you are transitioning into a league, upgrading from the AAC to the Big 12, I can understand why a new coach in that league might be hesitant to load up in the non-league because you're going to be loaded up once conference season starts. So we'll find out everything we need to know about Houston in the coming weeks, whether the Cougars are actually computer trickers or not. But right now, they are first at KenPom, 14 spots ahead of Kansas. And I know you disagree with this. I do too. But the current projections there are that Houston would finish 15-3 in the Big 12, 4 games ahead of Kansas in the standings. I do not think Houston will go 15-3 in the Big 12. And I'm the guy who thinks Houston, back from the preseason, would be the last undefeated team in the country. But I don't think they're going to go 15-3 in an 18-game Big 12 schedule. And I also don't think they're going to finish 4 games ahead of Kansas. I can't imagine anybody doing that to Kansas.
Yeah, the number 219. That's where Houston's at on the non-conference schedule. Kansas is number 60. I think that makes a difference.
Yeah. So Arizona, like I said, 11-3 overall. 3-3 in its past 6, but they got those 4 quad 1 wins. Yeah, all indications are that is the class of the Pac-12. And, like I sort of wrote in the top 25 and 1 this morning, there aren't many supposed challengers to Arizona in the Pac-12, but Colorado is supposed to be one of them. And they just blasted them late Thursday. That's the latest bit of evidence that suggests Tommy Lloyd's program is probably about to run through the Pac-12 pretty good and win yet another conference championship. Let's move on to some less exciting news, terrible news out of Providence. Bryce Hopkins, Friars All-American candidate, is done for the season. It's a torn ACL that was suffered on Wednesday night. We'll spend a few minutes on that next, but first, a word from our partners.
Sunday on the NFL season finale, playoff fates will be decided. Who's in, who's out. We can't wait for the answers. The NFL is on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
So terrible news out of Providence. Bryce Hopkins, the Friars All-American candidate, best player, done for the season. Torn ACL. I'm sure you've seen the video by now, David. Did you know when you saw it the first time that it was going to be bad the moment you saw it?
Yeah, it was pretty obvious. Just a total bummer for the old Friars there, who are off to a really good start under first-year coach Kim English.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so deflating. This is a team that started unranked but had earned a number next to its name, had opened Biggie's play with a things were going well. Obviously, Kim inherited a good situation, but the truth is that's almost like not even a thing anymore because the good situation you inherit could fall apart a week after you accepting the job. But he was able to keep important players in that program. Bryce Hopkins being obviously the biggest, and to just watch on a random Wednesday night, he's out in transition. He's just running up and down the court the way basketball players run up and down the court. And next thing you know, he's on the court. And the first real bad side, I thought, not that I've never heard somebody scream and it not be a big deal, but he screamed. It looked bad. And I said this on TV the other night. It looked bad and it sounded bad. When players, I've always noticed this, when they tear their ACLs in basketball games or wherever, they don't often show pain, they don't often scream the way he screamed. I tore my ACL in high school. I screamed. I thought my leg was broken. That's what it felt like to me. So I've always been like, God, am I not as tough as I thought I was? Because I don't I see these basketball players tear their ACL and they don't scream like I screamed. Buddy, I was hurting. I was screaming. But Bryce Hopkins screamed that way. And I think we all knew on Wednesday night that the news we were going to get on Thursday after the imaging was done was not going to be ideal. And that makes, and for people who maybe don't have a number on it, Bryce Hopkins, he's averaging 15.5 points, 8.6 rebounds, and 33.5 minutes per game. Started his college career at Kentucky, barely played, transferred to Providence, was terrific last season under Ed Cooley, had been terrific this season under Kim English, and now he is done for the season. That's two top 25 teams that have lost their best players for different reasons in the past 9 days. Illinois with Terrence Shannon, Providence with Bryce Hopkins. So that's not ideal for either of those programs. And then, of course, he's not Memphis's best player, but he is one of Memphis's good players. Caleb Mills had to leave the Tigers' victory at Tulsa on Thursday night after trying to drive baseline, and then it looked like he slipped, but Penny Hardaway said after the game he didn't slip. His leg just gave out. Similar to the way it sounded at Providence the other night, people didn't seem real optimistic that they were going to hear good news with Caleb Mills. But as always, we'll see.
On Mills, you could tell last night the reaction from his teammates told you everything you needed to know about what had happened to him. But I want to go back to something, Garrett. What were you doing when you tore your ACL in high school?
I was turning a double play. I was a second baseman. My shortstop.
Oh, it was his fault, huh?
I mean, it really was. I mean, and it's actually hilarious. So we're playing in a tournament at the University of Memphis. The University of Memphis coaching staff is there watching. My shorts.
Rock, or was he there yet? Or who was it?
It was, I think, before Shone Rock. Who was before Shone Rock?
I don't know.
Jeff somebody pops into my head. But so the coaching staff was there, not looking at me. I don't want to overstate it. I was 5'6" and 130 pounds. Nobody was looking at me. But I hung in there on a classic double play ball to my shortstop. He got it to me late. I still should have got off the bag, but he got it to me late. I tried to turn it. I was trying to make a play that I probably should. It's the classic thing coaches tell players all the time: don't try to do things you can't do. I tried to make a play. I got the ball late, tried to make a play that I shouldn't be making, and I got taken out at second base. Torn ACL.
Well, I hope the bench is cleared and that your teammates came to your defense.
No, my center fielder ran up to me and he said, "GP, rub some dirt on it. Rub some dirt on it, buddy. I just have 100% tear of my ACL in my left knee. You ready for this? Here's the kicker to the story. My shortstop that got the ball to me late went on to play at the University of Memphis and was the National Defensive Player of the Year, like his sophomore season. But I suffered a torn ACL because he got the ball to me late. But he went on to be the National Defensive Player of the Year.
He's probably like an HVAC technician now, and you're a national college basketball writer. So.
No, he's doing well. I actually saw him, or got a message from him over the summer. We still live in the same area, so I'll see him every once in a while. So yeah, that's my ACL story. It didn't happen on national television, but buddy, it hurt. I tell you that, it hurt like hell. So Providence is now. It doesn't get easier at Creighton on Saturday. And then St. John's on Wednesday. So this could be a bad stretch for Providence. You're rolling along, number next to your name, everything's good. Then you lose your best player. You lose a game that you were favored to win. And the next two you might be underdogs in. They could go from everything's cool to a 3-game losing streak, just like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I wrote the news story on Hopkins' injury for CBS Sports after Providence announced that he would be out for the season. And the two players who you most quickly identify as being in line for more minutes are both freshmen. And that's a little concerning to be navigating the Big East, now relying perhaps even more so on freshmen, especially in this day and time. They do still have some offensive firepower, though, and that Bryce Hopkins was not actually their leading scorer. So, yeah, I mean, it's just going to put more pressure on Devin Carter and Josh Oduro if they're going to maintain that trajectory. Because if the season had ended today, you would have had Providence in the NCAA tournament. And now I think that becomes much more of an uphill battle without your junior, former top 50 prospect who is versatile and does a lot for you.
Yeah. I'm not ruling it out that they can still get to the NCAA tournament. They do have enough good players, and I respect Kimmy enough to give them a chance. But it just goes without saying, it'll be more difficult than it otherwise would have been. Now that you're going to have to try to do it from this point forward without Bryce Hopkins, who was a Big East Player of the Year candidate, All-American candidate, and clearly Providence's best player. You ready for the Final 4-1 presented by FanDuel Sportsbook? Make every moment more. I got 4 games picked out. Cobb will have the 5th. We'll do that next, but first, one more word from our partners.
Out there are 2 colossal beings, both forces of nature in their own regard. But in here, as soon as the chute bursts open, the duality of man and beast begins to fade. This is the PBR on CBS Sports Network.
It's time for the Final 4-1 presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. I'll have you know that me and Norlander both went 3-2 last week. So now I'm 23-16-1 on the season. He's 22-17-1. That means I have a 1-game lead. A 1-game lead that is often described as insurmountable. Game 1, Friday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Number 9, Illinois at number 1, Purdue, inside Zach Edey Arena. You can watch it on FS1. FanDuel has it, Purdue minus 10.5.
Yeah, so a real quick point of clarification on this. Do my contributions count to Matt's tally? Is that his choice? How does this work?
I think you just get to keep your own contributions. You own your own.
That's great, but we said this a couple years ago when I filled in on a couple of Fridays, and I think y'all even went so far as to rope me into your competition, and I'm still waiting on some concert tickets as a result of my performance.
Jeez. God, everybody's always wanting stuff.
Yeah, I want to go to Eras in Hamburg, Germany next summer.
Okay, we could probably make that happen. I know how to get to Germany.
Yeah.
I know how to get there.
Check my mail.
I know where Germany is. Yeah. Just check your email. Yeah, I think these are just going to be your own picks. You're going to get, so like if you have a great week, you won't have as much quantity. You won't have as many. You're going to be a little bit like Gonzaga. You're not going to have as many quality wins as like a good Big 12 school or a good ACC school or a good Big 10 school. But you could do well within, on a limited basis. You only get so many quad 1 opportunities. You could do well within them and still hold up all right.
I'm like a walk-on.
You're a little bit like a walk-on.
I get 5 shots up all season.
Yeah.
Maybe I go 3 for 5, shoot 60%.
That's right. We could look at the season box score. We'd be like, man, David Cobb shot 60% that year. We won't know that it was only on 5 attempts or 10 attempts or whatever. The details don't matter. We're just looking at can you go 60% on the year? Hey, today, if you're going to do it, it starts right now. Purdue minus 10.5.
Yeah, I would actually take against this spread. 10.5 is a big number. I would go Illinois against this number, even without Terrence Shannon, even on the road. They only played once last year, and it was a 5-point game. So I think a lot of the players here are the same. I think Illinois is actually better than it was last year. We'll figure out if that remains true without Terrence Shannon. This is just a double-digit spread between two good Big Ten teams. I think Illinois covers the number.
Yeah, I'm with you. I listen, Purdue could pull them out. Purdue's capable of blowing anybody out, especially a team that, like Providence, is now missing its best player. But Illinois did just blast Northwestern without Terrence Shannon. So I think this is still a good basketball team. Not as good as the basketball team that it could have been, I don't think, but still good enough to stay within 10 of Purdue on the road. Obviously, for people who don't follow the sport too closely but might be listening, we should put the details on it. Terrence Shannon is no longer with Illinois because he is suspended because he was charged with rape in Kansas. He has maintained his innocence, but the Illinois athletic department has a policy that more or less triggered the suspension when he was formally charged with rape. So he is away from the program, not participating in any team activities, and we'll see where it goes from here. But I think it's reasonable to suggest it seems unlikely that he'll rejoin the Illini this season or ever. So Illinois, they lost not just their best player, but one of the best players in the country. I think if we were voting middle of last week for midseason All-Americans, Terrence Shannon would have been on my ballot as a first-team All-American.
Oh, it's a downer because think about it. The matchup between Terrence Shannon and Zach Edey could have low-key been like a battle for Big Ten Player of the Year.
Sure.
A matchup between National Player of the Year candidates, with Edey being far and away the favorite still, but Terrence Shannon being right there as somebody who's among the most productive players of the sport. Right.
Somebody pointed this out on Twitter last night. I don't have it in front of me, so I won't be able to provide proper credit, but you know who you are. You know who you are, and I'm not passing it off as my own. Somebody pointed this out. I just thought it was interesting. The last 2 teams that Illinois has beaten are the last 2 teams that have beaten Purdue. Illinois' last 2 wins are over Fairleigh Dickinson and Northwestern, and those are the last 2 teams that have beaten Purdue. Fairleigh Dickinson in the 2023 NCAA tournament and Northwestern last month.
Yeah, no, in theory, it makes sense because I think Coleman Hopkins at the 5 can pull Edey away from the basket. If he can hit some threes, then it opens up driving lanes for the rest of Illinois, and maybe it works out.
All right. So Cobb, Illinois plus the 10.5. GP, Illinois plus the 10.5. Game 2, Saturday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern. Number 6, Kentucky at Florida inside the Torian Green Center. You can watch it on ESPN. KenPom has that one. Kentucky -1. We barely talked about Florida at all this season, just completely off of the national radar. You paid attention to the Gators at all?
I mean, a little bit. In compiling my notes here, I noted that they have not lost since November the 29th. Granted, they've hardly played anybody since then. The really, really good shot blocking and rebounding team because they have some serious height. The schedule has been light, though, to this point. So the Gators are interesting. They're among like 10 teams that I legitimately feel like have a chance to get a double bye in the SEC tournament and finish among that top 4. I mean, you just go down the list. Pretty much everybody outside of South Carolina and Georgia. Heck, even South Carolina only has 1 loss. So, I mean, there's only a couple of teams in the SEC at this point that I know for sure are bad. And there are a whole lot, including Florida, who very well may still be good. And we're about to find out.
Yeah, Florida is so I just sort of recognize we barely touched on Florida at all. Like not after a win, not after a loss. And the reason is obvious when you dig into it. They're 10-3, 48th in the net. So just like borderline tournament team type thing. 0 losses outside of quadrant 1, 0 wins inside of quadrant 1. So they've done nothing great and they've done nothing terrible. They just have sort of existed, but this is obviously an opportunity for them to jump on the national radar. UK, 10-2, 3-1 in the first 2 quadrants. They do have the quadrant 3 loss to Wilmington. Man, I get a tweet from a Kentucky fan. It feels like every day. Want to know why I have Kentucky ranked, I believe, 10th when the AP poll has the Wildcats a little higher than that. And nobody ever mentions, like, they did lose at home to Wilmington. Like, that is something that I agree with you. Kentucky looks great. Kentucky doesn't look like that team that lost at home to Wilmington. You were shorthanded in the game. I got all of it, but it is something that happened, and it does need to be considered. Kentucky -1 on the road. I'm going to take Florida at home at the at what I remember to be
the O-Dome. Yeah, the old Chandler Parsons old stomping grounds. Hey, I'm kind of disappointed you're taking Florida because I am as well. I thought I was going to be original here. The part of the rationale is the fact that Kentucky's only true road game so far was at Louisville. And let's be real, what was the composition of that crowd at the Young? It was probably more blue than red for that game. And then, I think they played Penn in Philly, but I don't think that qualifies as a true road environment. This will be a true road environment, and you got a lot of freshmen who will be experiencing that for the first time. So I like the Gators to win straight up.
Yeah, I would take Florida straight up as well. It's just asking not a roster entirely filled with young guys, but a roster largely filled with young guys to go win what'll be an environment unlike anything they've seen so far, not just this season, but in their basketball careers. I mean, these freshmen are going to walk in and see something they've never seen before. Doesn't mean they can't win, but I would lean towards Florida there. Game 3, Saturday, 2 p.m. Eastern. TCU at number 2 Kansas inside TJ Gasnola Fieldhouse. You can watch it on CBS. It's America's most watched network. It's a network of stars. KenPom has a Kansas -7.
Easy. I mean, I'd take Kansas -12.5. I mean, what has TCU done at this point? I mean, their only top 100 KenPom games that they played were against Clemson and Nevada, and they lost both. Yeah, I mean, I would take Kansas against the spread in a heartbeat.
How about this? TCU is one of only 2 teams in the top 50 of the net that has 0 wins in the first 2 quadrants. They've beaten nobody. Trivia time. Who's the other team in the top 50 of the net but has 0 wins in quadrant 1 and 0 wins in quadrant 2?
Somebody
There's only 2 teams. TCU is one of them. Who's the other?
Hey, this is a good trivia time. No, I genuinely, is it somebody in the Mountain West?
It's somebody in the Big 12.
Oh, well, in that case, Cincinnati.
It is Cincinnati. That's right. Number 37 in the net. 0 wins in quadrant 1, 0 wins in quadrant 2. Nice record, but hadn't done anything. I'll take Kansas. Well, we can't be the same on everything. Give me the Horned Frogs. plus the 7.
I'm just trying to stay side mount. Side mount.
Maybe Kansas gets off to one of those slow starts, and then they got a rally to win, but they can't cover the number. I'll take TCU plus the 7, but Kansas to win the game. Game 4, Saturday, 6 p.m. Eastern. Number 22 Ole Miss at number 5 Tennessee inside Dame Bradshaw Arena. You can watch it on the SEC Network. Dame Bradshaw might be on the game. KenPom has it. Tennessee minus 14. Hey, Jared Burson, Andy Tulin, any of the great researchers out there, answer this one for me. Has a team ever been undefeated in college basketball in January and been a 14-point underdog in a game? I bet it's rare.
Gotta be. It's amazing. I think the Cinderella ride obviously comes to an end here. But 14, I am curious, like when the actual lines drop at FanDuel, right? Like, is it going to be that big of a number? Because if it were 9.5, I think I'd go Tennessee. But 14 is too much for me because I think Ole Miss doesn't quite get enough credit for the fact that they have been bolstered by the addition of their 2-time transfers. Because Brandon Murray, who averaged double figures at LSU and Georgetown, is just now getting up to speed since the ruling came down. Musa Cisse, who only got eligible a few weeks into the season, he's now in the mix as well, making Ole Miss one of the best shot blocking teams in the country. They're shooting the 3 ball as well as anybody in the country. So I think Ole Miss actually has a chance to sow some chaos here. Like when we did our dribble handoff question a week or two ago about if they would make the NCAA tournament, I said yes. Now I don't think they're going to be competing for the SEC title, but I think they're going to be maybe more competitive than the advanced metrics suggest. So I will take Ole Miss to cover a 14-point spread.
Yeah, I would take Ole Miss plus the 14 as well. Like, just because Chris Beard's the coach, I'll give him a fighting chance anywhere. He's terrific. But Ole Miss, you mentioned it, the computers hate Ole Miss. Hate them. Like, Ole Miss started 82nd at KenPom, is now 13-0, and still sitting at 82nd at KenPom. They've won 13 straight games, and it has not mattered to the computer. So they are winning, but they are not performing well, if that makes sense, at least in the ways that some of these algorithms judge such things. So I think Ole Miss drops from the list of unbeatens on Saturday. I think Houston remains unbeaten and James Madison remains unbeaten, but Ole Miss drops to that list. We'll be left with only 2. But I do think the Rebels can stay. I think they can make it competitive, even on the road against a team that the computers actually love. It's similar to the way I get asked a lot about why I have Kentucky lower than the AP poll. I get asked why I have Tennessee, I believe, in the top 4 of the top 25 and 1, because people get really caught up on the fact that Tennessee has 3 losses. I just don't care about number of losses or number of wins without context. Like, I don't get caught up on they have 3 losses, so they can't possibly be ranked in the top 5. The 3 losses are all to teams ranked in the top 15 at KenPom. They have 2 wins over top 15 KenPom teams. Do you know there are only 2 teams in the country that that has multiple wins over top 15 KenPom teams and 0 losses outside of the top 15 in KenPom? There's only 2 teams. Tennessee is one of them. The other one is Kansas. So I don't like, the resume is still strong despite 3 losses. The computer numbers are obviously strong. I don't know if Tennessee is really one of the 4 best teams in the country, but I know that it's not nearly as crazy as some people seem to think to have Tennessee in the top 5.
No, man. I do the power rankings now, and I have a hard time moving Tennessee into the top 10 because I have some concern about whether or not this Dalton Knecht phenomenon is going to withstand the rigors of SEC play. When you come from Northern Colorado and the Big Sky, I think it's just going to be difficult to sustain the shooting percentages and the offensive production over the course of the season. And if that becomes the case for Tennessee and for Dalton Knecht, then Tennessee is just back to being what Tennessee has always been under Rick Barnes, which is a high floor, low ceiling, top quadrant of the SEC, but struggling to win games in March. So I get your rationale behind Tennessee. I have a hard time believing that this Tennessee team is any different than previous iterations of Tennessee.
That's fair. At some point, people want to see you not only do it, but do it in March. We spent a lot of time, like the people everybody who covers college basketball spent a lot of time talking about how badly Purdue needs to have NCAA tournament success. Like, it's awesome that they are ranked number 1 in the country again, started 2023, ranked number 1, ended 2023, ranked number 1, 5 days into 2024, still ranked number 1, about to win another Big Ten title, probably by multiple games, probably about to have a back-to-back National Player of the Year. All of that stuff is terrific, but it won't matter much if they get bounced in the second round of the NCAA tournament. We all agree on that and have discussed it extensively about Purdue. You know who else is in that conversation? You touched on Tennessee. Like Rick really, like, there are people right now who, I promise you, more people feel like you than me, which is they're obviously good, high floor, and they're physical and they're tough and they guard and now they got a real playmaker in Dalton Knecht. That might have been like the missing piece, because when Zakai Ziegler went down last season, scoring got really hard for Tennessee. Well, Dalton Knecht fixes a lot of that. He can really go get buckets. So I think there are people out there that go, okay, maybe this team's different, and maybe Knecht is a difference maker, but I'll still believe it when I see it. I'm not going to trust them until they show me they can do it. Purdue has that connected to it as it pertains to postseason success, and I think Tennessee quite clearly, and maybe it's not Tennessee as much as it's specifically Rick Barnes, but it is some combination of Tennessee and Rick Barnes also have that thing connected to them. They can win the SEC, but if they don't make it to the Sweet 16, people are going to clown them again.
Oh, yeah, you nailed it. They have a chance. Like the Dalton Knecht edition gives them a fighting chance, but I just have my doubts about whether or not that's sustainable over the course of a season when he becomes the focal point of every opposing scouting report. And how do they handle that? Is he able to continue to get looks? That's a big question for me. So in this situation, I can't go Tennessee. I just don't trust them enough offensively to pick them to win a game against an undefeated opponent by 15 points.
That's right. So we'll both take Ole Miss plus the 14. And now we're at the and one. This is the game you get to pick.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so we're going to go to Clemson, South Carolina, and Terrence Oglesby Arena. Number 8, North Carolina at number 16, Clemson. It's at noon. It's on ESPN2. And the KenPom line is Clemson -1. Quick trivia time for you, GP. Major context hint here as to the timing of my question. But can you name the 2 leading scorers in the ACC as of today?
RJ Davis, PJ Hall.
Yeah, that's right. In
I'm
that
just
order.
guessing. Yeah.
In that order. So
okay.
A matchup of the ACC's 2 leading scorers here and 2 ranked teams, 2 of the strongest teams in the ACC. So and it's a close line. So this one seemed like a no-brainer for me for the 5th pick.
No, it was on the list of games to consider. I'm going to look at this a little bit like I look at Kentucky and Florida. I think Kentucky is better than Florida, but I think Florida's good, and I think home court advantage will be the difference there. I think, similarly, North Carolina is better than Clemson. I think North Carolina is legitimately good. I think home court will be the difference here. I'll take Clemson -1. Okay.
All right. I've kind of been on the fence about it, but I'll go North Carolina just to shake things up. The rationale for that would be Clemson just played a similar type of team in Miami and got shellacked. Up-tempo, good offensive team, similar to North Carolina in some respects. So I think maybe it's just a bad matchup for Clemson. So we'll go with the heels here.
And I don't know if you've ever been to Little John Coliseum, but it's when Clemson is good and the opponent is good, it is great. I don't know the exact size of it, but I just remember it. Baylor's new arena got some attention this week as being, small enough to be intimate, but still big enough to feel like a big-time college basketball experience. I just remember Little John feeling that way as well. Like, this isn't massive, but buddy, it feels like big time college basketball. I bet that place will be on fire this weekend. That's what I'm saying.
I have Lil John come in there and perform at halftime.
You know what? I'm not against that.
They should.
He should. I don't know why that hadn't happened yet. So I'll take Clemson over North Carolina. So I got two blue bloods, Carolina and Kentucky, both losing outright in the Final Four and 1. Could be a wild weekend.
It will be a wild weekend.
Oh, I hope so. And I also hope I start feeling better. Can you tell I'm sick?
Yeah, I thought you were crying there for a second when you were talking about Tennessee and Ole Miss because, like, I guess something got caught in your throat, but it sounded like you were getting emotional.
I do get emotional sometimes talking about the Vols and the Rebels. I grew up. I was born in Tennessee but raised in Mississippi. Sometimes when I talk about the Vols and the Rebels, I get very emotional, or I'm just sick because I fly too much and don't sleep well and don't take vitamins.
Right now, like it's going around. Like I went to a busy restaurant the other night, and I've had a sore throat ever since. And I'm just like, I was around too many people, man. Too many people.
Well, that's the thing. Like, my mother is sick. Now I'm gonna just die. My mother's sick. My little guy's sick. Both my little guys are home from school. I've tested negative for COVID, so I'm gonna get on my plane. But I apologize to anybody who has to sit next to me today. I didn't want to feel this way. This ain't the way I wanted to feel. I just need to get into a hotel room and lay down with a nice cup of tea, warm tea, and perhaps some Dayquil or NyQuil, or maybe I mix them together like Lil Wayne might, and maybe that'll be the key to feling better. Maybe this is where I turn my season around.
I mean, it's big that you decided to show up today and have your flu game, because with Matt Norlander out, I mean, what would we have done, right? Would we have gone double walk-on this show, like a Cobb Boone special? I don't think
it could have been a Cobb. No, like there was a moment yesterday. 'Cause I didn't get home till 10 o'clock last night. Now I'm leaving again here in about 2 hours. There was a moment last night where I was like, I don't know if I can do this. Like I really don't feel well. And I still have a cough, but I was coughing very badly last night as I got home. And I was like, I don't think I can do this. My body is shutting down. And then I was like, but Norlander's, he's out skiing. I need to be there. So here I am.
Guy who stood in there on second base and took that hit, took that hard slide, and tried to turn the double play. You're not somebody who just folds when times get tough.
You see, there's a pattern to my life. Is it smarter for me to get off the bag, get the one out, and just move on? Sure. But I'll hang in there.
And you know what? You getting that out helped your shortstop impress those scouts, because the shortstop did his part, and he was able to go on and play Division I baseball because of the sacrifice that you made.
And look at me. Now I just sit in a space formerly known as an attic and talk about Little John Coliseum.
Proud of you, man.
Proud of myself. Thank you. Shouts to Devin Downey. Shouts to Chester, South Carolina. Shouts to Huck, Larnell. Thank you guys once again for listening and watching the Eye on College Basketball Podcast. If you're not subscribed, please go subscribe anywhere you subscribe to podcasts, including Apple and Spotify. There's more of us than there are of them. That should be reflected in the comments. So please do that. And me and Norlander, assuming he doesn't, take a fall on the slopes. I've seen people take falls on slopes before. I've read those stories. So as long as he doesn't take falls on the slopes, he should be back with us again on Sunday. David Cobb, thank you for being here. I appreciate it, buddy. And hey, I wish you luck on all your picks. You could have low quantity, but a great winning percentage.
I'll be looking for those Taylor Swift tickets.
Yeah, they're on their way. Taylor Swift in New Orleans. They're on the way. Talk to you guys Sunday. Till then.